It's the PM Hour, people. You know where you came. You know what you came to hear from us.
That's right. You know.
So we're going to get right into it because we got an interesting topic to share our opinions over. And my name is Patrick.
I'm Tasha.
I'm Terry.
Oh, it's Garrett, and it's all about the melanin, y'all.
Yeah. And all right, y'all. So this week, it's been a wild ass week, right, y'all?
Yes, it has.
And,
yeah.
okay.
You know it, man.
And so y'all know what we're gonna talk about this week. We're gonna talk about all this hot mess that happened in the Capitol, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so, yes, thank you. And so now, really, I mean, I know we've heard a lot of talks about what's been going on, but here at the PM Hour, we usually have different takes on things. And what we want to focus on right now is the white privilege, right? And Black Lives Matter in this whole situation, right? The stuff that these folks,
the white rage,
white rage,
yes, this white supremacy thing we're talking about, yeah,
exactly. And we're gonna talk about right now the things that these people was able to get away with, right,
exactly,
and all the stuff that worked in their favor in this riot or insurrection, whatever they're calling this situation that happened at the Capitol right now. It was like a mini coup.
Yeah, it was a mini coup. Yeah. It was so right.
Right. So I just want to see what you guys think about this as far as like the privilege that these white folks are able to engage in.
And let me go,
what you think about this?
Yeah, and that's a good way, to start talking about this, because, you hear it mentioned around and people talk about this. If it was black people, this and this, you always hear that saying, if it was black people. And that's absolutely right. If it was black people, we fear that we'd have been shot down before we even touched the lawn of Capitol Hill.
We wouldn't have got nowhere.
And they would have definitely had security built around. Matter of fact, there's footage and everything of when Black Lives Matter was in Washington, and they was already ready to protect everything. And people knew about this coming. So you guys heard about the story, so not to go down this. But this idea of white privilege, it's my opinion that there's a dichotomy of, multiple dichotomies of how this country is seen. White people see this country different from everyone else. The Constitution doesn't matter to them as much as long as white people is in power over it. The Constitution would be toilet paper to them if they felt like their power was threatened. They wouldn't care about Constitution. I think other races, particularly black people, are more loyal to the Constitution than white people are. Right. They are. They know.
We have to be.
We have to be.
Yes.
Or we will face the exact punishment of it.
Oh, yeah. From back in the days.
And people have to remember, you got to look at certain things in its basic form, like what I do. Laws don't mean shit. Laws don't mean a damn thing unless you have the power to enforce it. Unless you have the power to enforce whatever law you want, then laws don't mean people won't respect it, but the punishment you will get from it. And white people, they know that's their people that is the author of this country and setting the laws. So of course, if they feel like they want to bring zip ties into Capitol Hill and tie up politicians and everything like that, then they will do that. They don't have no fear of the repercussions that come with having to do this. They have no fear of that. So they would feel like they want to get the team together and go ahead and rush Capitol Hill and do all this. I'm saying they don't have the fear of the problems or the crime or the punishment that will come from it because hey, that's our people.
Yeah.
And you've seen examples of it. And this is what I'm going to say. You've seen examples where white people are treated much better in the judicial system than any other race compared to blacks.
Absolutely.
So the judicial system is not even fair. So what will make white people think in their character and how they feel about this country that we can do this and they're still going to give us a slap on the wrist. They have that feeling, even though you see some of them being arrested and they're going to face the punishment of crime. But I'm talking about the thinking, the cultural thinking behind how they view this country and what their privilege lies. That's true. Their privilege, or I say white power.
Well, they haven't let out the terms or some of these.
Their privilege is a result of the power they have in this country.
You know what I want to say, just to and then you can continue, not to completely interrupt, but. Just to add to what you're saying, a lot of these police officers, people are wondering how this movement was able to move the way it did.
Yes, so
and when you
far,
watch some of the videos, you can see how you said, the privilege and the white race. A lot of these officers, they weren't really opponents to these people. That was pushing their way through in the Capitol. They weren't opponents. They were actually agreeable to a lot of that.
And the police officer that wasn't even there in the first place before the people, when they knew there was talks about this, come in. And then this is the last point I'm going to say to your point, what you just brought up, because it's part of the same thinking. These officers probably take it seriously. Oh, it's a bunch of white guys talking about they're not going to really do this. And white people not was, if it was white people, if it was black people they knew was planning this the whole time, they would have took it seriously. But it's still a white control structure. The police force is, law enforcement is, and you have these white people who think about taking the Capitol. So of course they're going to take their own people. They see their people differently.
Yeah.
As far as this whole power structure called America goes,
Racism.
Exactly.
The system that's in place.
Just the system that's in place.
Which is a natural way for white people to think. This is them.
You see somebody that look like you that's breaking a law, and you agree.
Yeah. You see the understanding for what their reasoning. You give them the reasoning for it. They give them the reasoning for
I don't
their
think
crime.
they look at their people as angry, aggressive. You see what I'm saying? They don't look at
even the crazy ones, right?
Exactly.
Even the ones out of their mind.
They don't see them
Good
as
point.
angry as aggressive. So that's why they was to brush them off. That's why they got them far as they did. You see,
They
what
didn't
I'm saying?
take them that serious.
No,
They opened
that's
the
why they
doors,
was
sis. They opened the doors.
There you go. That's why they was able to climb the wall.
Oh, and
got
they
us
took
across the
selfies. They took
grass.
pictures.
Yeah.
And that's why they was able to go as far with the weapons, hit on the police. How do you know?
Beat the police to death. They killed the police.
Hit a police officer and not as this far get arrested. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What person do you know could get inside of Congress? Like, are you serious?
Not a black person.
Not a black person.
You might
Only
as well
white.
just take a selfie with the congressman himself.
They did. They just on the chairs. They were in the offices and the whole
you see what I'm
nine.
saying? And
Sorry.
then just you're breaking on the Congress, the windows, knocking on the doors, all this type of stuff, and say, hey, let me in. No, I'm the big bad wolf. You see what I'm saying?
They didn't even say let me in. They broke the windows and broke in.
No,
and
that's not what
ties.
I'm saying. My point is, I was just saying it's like they're knocking on the doors and just basically saying let me in, and they just basically went in. You seen a guy walked all up in their stairs, and the officer was just basically nonchalant, pushing him back. And
Part of
he
the same privilege.
Yes, and just walking back. So it's like, who does that?
There wasn't even many shots fired. Wasn't many shots fired. Think about the
their
arrest. They had to
people
arrest
does
people
that.
the day after. Nobody got arrested that day. Everybody pretty much did what they did and was
it's
able to go.
And then you have this so-called white officer. I mean, I ain't gonna call him a so-called white officer. He was an officer in blue, and they say save the blue lives, but he took his own life just because I guess he felt bad of being on the other side, which was they want to call themselves protesters.
Oh
which we
yeah,
were
that
not.
last
He was not a
officer. You
protester,
you talking about that last officer that we found out today that passed away, and it turns out he passed away of
and
suicide.
I, condolences
We
to the
found
family
out.
because I don't want
Oh,
to.
so he wasn't. He died after.
Passing or whatever the case may be.
Okay. Sorry to
After
cut
the
you
fact-
off. Yeah, sorry to cut
I'm
you
sorry.
off.
I just want to add that in there.
My
After
bad.
the fact, because they were saying that he passed away, but they didn't say how he died.
Yeah.
And then we just found out today that actually he died of suicide.
I did read that article, but and the article didn't lead me to that. It was after the whole kind of situation where he went down.
It was the same situation here that what we're talking about today.
Okay.
He was involved in this whole situation here. That's what they do not want you to know.
Yeah.
Do you guys understand that?
Yeah.
People,
Yeah.
please open your eyes. They do not expose all of this, but hey, this is the PM Hour, and you know who I am. I'm going to expose all this because you guys need to know the truth. He was involved in all of this.
Yeah, right. And just to take it there, it's one thing that we should all be saying, because this is why we built this podcast, to let y'all know, man, y'all should be woke already. Y'all should already know. So one thing I kind of want to bring to the element of our conversation is how didn't we all notice about one thing that we can't lose is the side of the drive of Caucasians, the drive of white people. We can't forget about that. Think about it. We had conversations about this, my brothers and sisters, how we talk about that white people fought tooth and nail to get to where they are now, right? For their to hold this kind of white supremacy, right?
Supremacy,
yes, that's right. They even started their own people just to get here. You know what I'm saying? Like what they went through, but we're talking about in terms of conquering nations, colonialism. They did what they did. You know what I'm saying? In their trek, colonizations. They started on the trek to get to where they got, right? And let's bring that on more in the modern times. Let's take a look at the people that were there. A lot of these people were not poor people. They were probably middle class. Some of them were like middle upper class. You know what I'm saying? They were pretty like prominent people. Now, I'm not giving them credence. Okay, I don't want to let it know that I'm trying to pump these people up. But what I'm trying to say is that you guys have to understand, because it's the PM hour, I'm talking about black stuff. You have to understand white people's drive to sacrifice whatever it may be to get whatever they want. They will literally, like you seen it for yourself. So we seen it. If they had the opportunity, they would have burned Capitol Hill to the ground. If that meant their freedom will come, even if not even tomorrow, not even next week, not even 2 years later. If their freedom will come 3 years later, they would have burned it to the ground, knowing that sacrifice would have had suffice. So
Exactly.
I
totally
want
agree.
all my brothers and sisters out there to understand that this is a black thing that we have to notice. The sacrifices that we kind of have to make, and it don't have necessarily be as big, it can be small scales, like how we talk about shopping at black markets, or just trying to bring more shopping back, buying back, just doing things more black. Those are little sacrifices we can make, and just with our spending and doing things that's just different.
Yeah.
Because we see right now that not even just white, I should say, a lot of races. We talk about Asians in here. Asians, they're willing to sacrifice so much they're willing to sacrifice so much.
It takes for their sovereignty.
It comes into an idea of what are we? I mean, for me, when it comes to what do we really? I don't want to say that, but I don't want to say that. But I don't want to say that because it seems kind of hard, and I don't want to be the one to be pointing fingers and all that on my brothers and sisters. It's not like that. But I want us to realize we should be woke already. I want us to realize what's really going on here, because this is a reality. And this is what we're living in the times of now. These are all the times that we're living in now. And we have to understand that this is no different from what they say, the 1800s, the 1700s, or even thousands of years ago. White people are willing to do what they have to do, you know? And I don't want to say are we, but what is it that are we willing to sacrifice to get there? You know what I mean? Is it a question? Can I ask? Can I be there? Can I be as bold as to say? You know, do
That's
anybody
not bold.
want
That's
to,
exactly
you know what I mean?
right.
Can I open this conversation up if anybody want to get
Yeah.
there? Because this is one of those things. It's one of those things that we should definitely, you know, sit here and talk about, because it's kind of opening, you know, because look,
Yeah.
the Capitol Hill thing happened, right? And that's just kind of like, I don't want to say it could be a precursor, or I don't want to say something it could be the beginning of something, but what I'm saying is, look at what does it take. Look what else. What could they do? They're not afraid to storm Capitol Hill. What's next? I'm saying, what's next?
Well,
You feel
right.
me? They
What's
can
next?
go.
What's next? Right. But I agree with a lot of what you're saying. Right. Because right now we're talking about, you know, white rage,
It's
and
supremacy system.
white
right,
rage,
systematic. Yes.
white
rage.
supremacy,
Yes.
and also white privilege. We're talking about all that, right? And you touched on a lot of ways where, you know, minorities or say African Americans don't have that same privilege. But, you know, still on top of that, a lot of the stuff you were saying with the white, they have the power.
Yes.
So a lot of that stuff that you're saying, oh, you know, we can't do this or we can't, like assembly.
Why do I say we can't? I didn't want to say we can't. And what I'm saying is, you know what I mean?
Sacrifice that we're willing to make, right?
If there is one. I don't want to say that we're not willing to make a sacrifice, but what sacrifice is it? What is the sacrifice? What is the sacrifice?
I just think that's such a loaded thing, right?
Exactly.
The sacrifice that you're willing to make. First of all, that's not a sacrifice. It's not a sacrifice. What you saw on Wednesday that happened with the insurgent in Capitol Hill, that's not really a sacrifice. I mean, we all talked about the privilege that comes with being white, right? The white supremacy. That wasn't anything. There was a lot there in a lot of that. First of all, there was a video. You know, I don't know if you guys saw that, but during the insurrection, there was a white homeowner that happened to live in DC, and there was a black a driver, right? And they had this communication back and forth where he was saying, oh, wow, this is so crazy, everything that's going on. I bet you if this was Black Lives Matter, and he was recalling before what happened to Black Lives Matter, or if this happened under Obama, or if this person that's inciting, you know, if the president was black, what would we be seeing right now, right? Would we be seeing the same thing that's going on, right? And he basically was pointing to the fact that, like, okay, you know, I get everything that's, you know, what you're saying.
No, but they took risk. You can call it sacrifice or whatever you want. They took risk.
It's hard
They took
for
risk.
you to
They took
make a
risk.
sacrifice
They took risk is what I'm
when
saying.
you have
They
certain
took risk.
things when you have certain, first of all, every person that watched that guy that in that video, he said, oh, if this was Black Lives Matter or if this person was Obama, they had a whole interaction. But it's hard for you to make that sacrifice when you have a lot to lose. We've had the conversation where it's like, okay, if you are worried about drinking, water that's not contaminated, or just having vegetables or fruits or whatever, if you or just have needing a place to live, if you have those issues going on, there's only so many sacrifices you can make. You're already at the bottom.
I see
so
what you're saying.
Keep you at that.
And
so these people that are out there that you're saying that's making sacrifice, they not really making a sacrifice.
Risk. They took risk.
They out here.
Let me say.
And what really are they? What are you doing this insurrection for? You're doing this for a man that you thought that won an election that really didn't win an election.
Not necessarily.
What was Black
I don't think that's the root of it.
Matter out here for?
I don't think that's the root of it.
What they believed.
What was Black Lives Matter out here for?
That's not the root of it. Let me say. I think, you know what I'm saying, it's not just they were doing because of what Trump said. It's not just doing it because of everything that's going on. Here's the root of it. White people, they have this delusion of grandeur. They feel like they're losing this country. They feel like other races are doing better than them. They feel like they don't have power anymore. They feel like the future, as it goes, is going to be more dark-skinned and everything. It's going to happen. They feel like they're losing a lot when they have been and still maintain power. That's the delusion in them. This country's owned by white people. Don't get no mistake. I don't know who don't know this.
The world.
You think America is, if it can work for everybody and what's the same? No, this country is white power controlled, and it will be. And if only way that's going to not happen is if we remove white people from power, and they will do whatever it takes to not make that happen. So that's what we're going to live under. That's what America is, if you're realistic about what it is. Them storming the Capitol Hill was showing you this country belonged to us. Only us can storm in there and do this, not you.
Yes, I
agree.
agree.
Look at how the media is framing it. You have some commentators and some people that's labeling it terrorism. They're saying it, but they're not really giving it the label of terrorism. They want to use insurrection and storm. They want to use everything else.
Yeah.
But they don't want to use the word terrorism. You notice that?
Yeah.
Of course. I reiterate. They're kind of vaguely saying terrorism, but they're not giving it the label.
Yes.
Whereas in the Constitution, everything like there is such things called domestic terrorism. This was domestic terrorism.
This is terrorism.
But it was
Definitely
white people that
domestic
doing it
terrorism.
because they're attached to this country. The power white structure is white people, and these people that stormed Capitol Hill are white.
Yes.
Right? So
the story doesn't want to be told. You can be told that way. No,
exactly.
of course,
So
because
even-
white supremacy
even
still
in
has
that
to
way
reign
they're
supreme.
protected.
Yeah.
So even that way they're protected, and that's the difference, between Black Lives Matter and this. This country is seen differently, And if black people, speaking specifically us, because that's our audience. Black people, we have to understand what the country. I think we lose sight of what this country actually is. We want to get away from these people. We want to get away from what this is, but we're not realistic about the situation. These things like this should highlight exactly what it is. If it's not clear to you, what this country is about, then this should make it so. You follow me?
Yeah.
Right.